This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest, the podcast which brings you reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema and instead went straight to DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming media. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me this week are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everybody.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello, everyone.
And we have got a bumper show for you this week. We've got 6 films in review. We're going to kick off with the Red Dot, which has just turned up on Netflix. Then we're going to go to Gatecrash. After that, it's The Owners and Broil, What Lies Below, and we're going to end our reviews with Archenemy. Then it's time for our short shot, which this week is a Star Trek fan film called Squadron from the Czech Republic, and our DTV throwback is Steel. So without further ado, let's crack on. So our first review is Red Dot. When David and Nadja, who've hit a rough spot in their marriage, they decide to rekindle their love for each other with a long weekend hiking in a remote valley. However, on their first night, they not only encounter some racists, but they are terrorized by someone with a sniper rifle aiming its laser sight directly at them. Dun, dun, dun. This is a film which takes a long time to get going. I think it's almost about 30 minutes into a 90-minute film before the actual threat materializes.
That's usually the case with most films.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually the 30-minute rule, basically. The main thrust of the story will kick in at the 30-minute point.
I guess. Yeah, but it felt. I think with this particular film, it did sort of feel quite prominent. You know, you kind of noticed it a bit more.
Well, they've got a bit of in media res to just warm you up a little bit.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, as everyone knows, it's my favourite cinematic trope where they start at the end and then work backwards. Thank you very much. And yes, and we know why it's there. It's because there's this 30-minute lull as we sort of learn about these characters, how they, how he proposed to her and things like that, and then we sort of jump forward a year and a half, and things aren't as rosy as they were back then. And there's the tiniest of hint as to why that is. The flashbacks are so obtuse, but you just know that they have some sort of relevance. Even though they're not showing you anything, they're keeping their cards very close to their chest. But having said all that, once it actually does get going, I thought this was rather good. It's a good sort of survival horror kind of situation, with very few characters, as you'd expect. And guys, I couldn't help but notice a certain similarity in one of the themes to Wrong Turn that we covered in the last episode.
Well, I couldn't help but notice a certain similarity to, in every respect, to Let It Snow, which we covered a few weeks ago. Yeah, this was basically exactly the same film.
It's a very similar idea, yeah.
In a lot of respects, although I thought this got everything right that the other one got wrong, I felt.
Yeah.
We had a lot of complaints about Let It Snow. Like, it's a bit repetitive. It's a bit unrealistic. They keep, catching the person, letting them go, and everything was a bit absurd. I think this one managed it a lot better.
Yes, it certainly did, and you really felt for their sort of situation as well for a long parts. But one of the good things about the film is it really does play with your sort of your loyalties as well. Who you're actually sort of sympathising with. Throughout the film, and there is that sort of like as we saw in Wrong Turn, that sort of narrow-minded thinking that basically screws everything up. If they weren't guilty about one thing, they're certainly guilty about something else. But
the other thing it reminded me of was it's got that really familiar cliche of crossing paths with a confrontation or a sort of a kind of a confrontation, crossing paths at a petrol station. I mean, we saw it recently in Tailgate.
Yeah, absolutely.
That kind of that's always the place that people meet on the road. I mean, there's diners and stuff as well, which they also do. But I thought it's quite funny that it was touching on those very familiar. I mean, there was a Christopher Lambert film called Road Flower a long time ago. I think that did the same thing. And then there's stuff like Breakdown and whatnot. But
there's it's a Norwegian one. Norwegian one I remember seeing called Rovdyr, which was really good as well. And that had the same sort of thing going on, Even Tucker and Dale versus Evil, they send that whole thing up, don't they? They're really, that whole situation. Excuse me. This was quite enjoyable. I was glad it wasn't just this couple being chased by a red dot for the whole film. I mean, that was the jumping off point, and then it sort of opens up a bit and puts them in other sort of perilous situations, which I thought was sort of pretty well done. And I must admit, I did like the how everything came together at the end. Rich, what are your thoughts over this?
I mean, I think.
Go on, Steve.
You might as well jump in, Steve.
Oh, I said Rich then. Sorry.
Yeah, I did, but you jump in anyway.
Sorry, I thought you said Rich. No problems. It was okay. I mean, like you're saying, there's that one point where it switches and you find out exactly what's going on, and it really does test your loyalties about it. And I did like that kind of switcheroo that it does, but like I say, it was familiar to Let It Snow, but I just think this had more urgency, more tension, more build up, and it paid off more. Let It Snow, I just thought was too bland, and like you say, it was like, we'll chase for a little bit, then leave you for an half an hour. This was more focused, more intense, and also, like you say, you've got a few red herrings in there as well,
which I thought were very well played, really.
Getting this type of thing, yeah, exactly, yeah, and the ending's quite a different ending, not what I expect from that film at all, really.
Yeah.
But obviously that halfway point where you get that little twist and you know something's coming.
Yeah, because of those stupid flashbacks, you think, I wonder why they're flashing back to that moment. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It gives you a little teaser and then it'll show you the whole thing play out. And that's what really got me about it, the actual moral ambiguity that you've got in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really enjoyed it with that one. Yeah.
The and sort of how the other guy found out about it as well. That was quite devastating. So that whole thing, and Rich, any thoughts from you?
Without wishing to give it away or anything, but drones as a plot device. I know that's another one of your favorites.
I know, exactly, but I'll give it this one. Yeah. Because the thing is, it wasn't sort of trying to make it look cool. It's like I think there was one Steven Seagal movie. It was like, hey, look at us, we got a drone. How cool is that?
And it's got a machine gun.
Yeah, but I hate all that bullshit. But this was more appropriate, I think.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I mean, I was very impressed by it. Really, I mean, it was the it's Sweden and the snowy landscapes or whatever obviously look incredible. So that it puts it makes it even, the setting as well as the themes and everything make it very close to Let It Snow. But I thought this did it a lot better. I thought there was a lot of nice scenes where they were contrasting moments of joy with despair. Yeah. They would show something really happy, and then there were lots of sudden jump cuts and things where they would suddenly you switch to like at the start of the film, they've just got engaged, hooray, it's all really happy, and then the next moment he's playing on his PlayStation, whatever, clearly not getting on, and she's shouting at him and stuff. And and then they continue that throughout at least the first part of the film.
Yeah, him sitting there just playing on his Xbox or PlayStation or whatever. Yeah, that gave me a bit pause. So maybe push maybe put the Xbox controller out of sight for a second. But in case I get any sort of glaring looks.
I thought there was some nice little callbacks as well. You know, they mention things like the video game and stuff at the start, which then become relevant later.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he's talking about the guns. He's that's like a gun that's in the game that I play. You know, so if it is the same, then we've got about 10 seconds because they've got to reload and stuff like that. So that they sort of cleverly peppered things out. But I did really love the third act revelations and the way it twists it and stuff, and the way everyone played it as well. Because you meet various characters, and some of them you're not sure about. Some of them are red herrings and whatever, and it really plays with your expectations, and as you say, switches your challenges your sympathies, let's say. I don't really want to say anything more than that because it's really, really good. It's well worth seeing.
Absolutely, and it's on Netflix at the moment, so it's there to watch basically if you're a subscriber. How are we going to score it? Rich, over to you first.
Before I give my score, I just want to say one thing. It's the first film I've watched that I've noticed, because it's a 2021 release. First film I've noticed where in the credits it says COVID compliance officers and supervisors.
That's interesting.
Which is quite interesting, I thought. So on that note, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
I can't argue with that. Yeah, so I'm going to give you an 8 as well. And Steve?
Yep, I'll go with an 8 as well.
Cool.
8 as well.
3 8s for Red Dot. Catch it while you can while it's on Netflix. Our next review is Gatecrash. Nicole and Steve returned from a night out shaken as they hit a man and took the decision not to stop to see if the poor guy was still alive. However, while they decide whether to inform the police, the evening takes an even more macabre turn. Okay, this first thing I want to say, Rich, is I am so dead envious of their house. Their bloody house is this huge bungalow sort of farm building or something, and it is just like, it's minimalist furniture and all the rest of it, but it looks absolutely gorgeous. And the opening is this woman, Nicole, when she gets home and she's walking through the house and the camera's sort of tracking her, and it's like corridor after corridor. Then it opens up into this big sort of like, sort of family room. Oh, I was dead jealous, and big paintings on the walls and everything. Anyway, that's beside the point, because what we got here is a very well produced film, which for the first half I think is very tightly written, really interesting, and then it kind of loses a bit in the second half for me. So we got this couple, Nicole and Steve. Steve has got a complete arsehole. He abuses his wife. He beats her to keep her compliant and things like this. This incident's happened and it's sort of put them both on edge. And then weird stuff starts happening. It turns out Steve's lost his phone. Somebody's found his phone and is ringing in the house. Who could it be? And then a policeman turns up, or does he? And it gets strange like that, basically. So, Rich, what did you make of Gatecrash?
I loved it. I thought it was really good. I'd like to say, you highlighted the house there. Well, the thing about the house is that it's kind of representative of their relationship, because it's they're beautiful people in this everything. They seem to have everything going for them, but the house is empty, beautifully decorated, but it's very sparse and very empty and very cold. There's no real warmth. There's no warmth in the house. Color to it.
It's all monochrome, isn't it? All the furniture's either white
exactly.
Or,
So there's no warmth in the house. There's no warmth in their relationship. It's not a comfortable place. It's beautiful to look at, but it's not a comfortable environment to be in. They don't have any music or anything playing. I mean, not even a TV particular, but
didn't even have a TV.
But I think that's all designed to keep you, on edge. It's it was no surprise when it got to the end, and I'm watching the credits. It was no surprise to realise that it's based on a play, because it felt very much like a play while I was watching it.
Yeah.
The film it brought to mind was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Sleuth with Jude Law and Michael Caine. Which I didn't get on. Yeah. There was a pin to play. I didn't get on with that.
I've seen the original, which was Michael Caine. And,
I've seen the original.
Laurence Olivier. Yeah. Anyway.
So this was the Kenneth Branagh one from 2007. I went to see at the cinema. But this was, I mean, it's a very small cast. It's all taking place in like a couple of rooms. Now they've mixed it up a little bit because obviously it's a feature film. So you go outside and stuff like that. But the acting was really good. The characters, Samuel West turns up as ostensibly representing himself to be a police officer, but there's just something not right about him. But I always like seeing him turn up in stuff. He usually does period dramas and things like Mr. Selfridge, Downton Abbey kind of stuff. He's been in that, but
it's freaky, wasn't
here he's playing completely against type. Sorry.
I mean, it's freaky when he comes in and then she loses track of him in the house and he just like disappears.
Yeah,
it's really freaky. Yeah, it's good.
Well, there's the whole thing about the film is there something supernatural going on? Because if slightly to its detriment, I think it plays it very straight, but stuff just doesn't add up. Yeah. And the only way it can is if it's supernatural, as far as I'm concerned, because it just doesn't. The pieces of the puzzle don't fit together quite right.
I think you're right as far as Simon West's character is concerned. He could be the sort of supernatural element to it because of the way he's sort of the catalyst to a lot of what actually happens. When he stirs shit up basically, and then just vanishes for the rest of the film. It's very bizarre.
But then there's that the other thing. There's the quote. He says this long quote, which then the other guy, the victim, who comes back to say, "Oh, I'm so glad you helped me out," and whatnot. And it all goes a bit pear-shaped. Played by the fourth person in the cast, because I don't think there's anybody else. Anton Lesser, who is another recognisable character actor, but I couldn't say anything particular that I've seen him in. Apparently, he played a character called Qyburn on Game of Thrones, but 22 episodes and various other things he's done. But he says this exact same thing that I mean, the other guy could have said it and he could have memorized it potentially, but I don't think so. I think there's a hint. That's a hint. There's like a heavy hint there of something not quite right going on.
It's interesting when you see some of these credits include Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones had a cast of thousands, basically, and the Will Dinner's wife could claim to have been in Game of Thrones, but yeah, I mean, there's so many.
So I don't know.
You haven't seen
the importance of what?
Yeah.
No.
Oh dear. Anyway, this is solid stuff. Really, as I said, you got the feeling you're watching a sort of cinematic play. For sure, just from the writing, the quality of the writing. I just loved when Simon West was sort of going, I'll just Gatecrash that party. I was just watching people, and then I was watching you, and see what happened. And
then I followed you. Or, and okay, so he's turning up then in a police car and everything. So where did he get the police car?
Where did that come from? Yeah, and the uniform and everything. So
it's because he goes from that early scene where he's dressed up as a policeman to that other scene a few minutes later
when he looks like John McClane at the end
he's
of
dressed completely different.
At the end
Die
of
Hard. So I think it's well worth seeing. The play that it was based on was called Life's a Gatecrash by Terry Hughes. I haven't found details of anything more that Terry Hughes has done, but I thought it was really. I was very impressed with the characterization, characters. I mean, the Steve guy's just nasty. He's just a nasty piece of work. Absolutely. And she's the actress Olivia Bonamy, who's a French actress playing his wife. You know, she's clearly like fearful. You know, like you know, there's domestic abuse. You know, heavily. Well, it's not even hinted at. I mean, she suffers some domestic abuse at the start of the film when they have a confrontation.
She's stuck she's stuck at the abusive end of the relationship. You know, and even to the point where, you know, she's agreeing with him when he says, "This is all your fault. Look what you made me do." You know, sort of thing. You know, so that's that sort of really abusive, sort of manipulative sort of situation.
What I liked about it was that contrast between this, although she is in many cases the victim in the relationship, she's actually the much stronger person. I mean, when somebody knocks on the door, her husband vanishes.
Oh yeah,
and she you know goes and answers and has the conversation, and you know she's confronted, she's stepping up to it. You know, she's facing it, whereas he's
composed.
He's just hiding away, and you know will only come out if he needs to or whatever, or gets found. You know, I thought and the way it played out was really good. A bit over the top, say in certain respects. Say I don't think some of the stuff adds up, but apart from that, I'd say highly recommended. Well worth.
Absolutely. So what are you going to score this one, Rich?
I'm going to give that another 8 out of 10. I think.
I'm going to go 7. I really did thoroughly enjoy this, but as I said, I thought some of the dialogue towards in the second half of the film, which is sort of set about a year after what happens at the beginning, I just thought it laboured the point a bit too much. You know, the sort of dialogue was going around in circles a bit.
It does a bit, yeah, quite a bit. You know, there is a sense of padding it out. I think you could have easily shaved 10 minutes off the running time.
Yeah, but other than that, this is great stuff. The dialogue's great. You know, the acting's great. The story's very intriguing. So yeah, a 7 and an 8. This is available on VOD. Check it out. Our next review is The Owners. When Nathan, Terry, and Baz target a seemingly rich elderly couple for an easy score, Nathan's girlfriend Mary finds herself dragged into what turns out to be a complete nightmare for all concerned. I think this is most notable for me that it stars Silvester McCoy.
Yes, me too.
You know, it's very nice that what's her face from Game of Thrones is in there as well. Was it Maisie Williams?
Maisie Williams, yep.
Yep, thought so. Yeah, and she's very good in this. But you know, what a return to form for Silvester McCoy as the sort of the doctor in. Funny enough, a doctor in this one as well. And I thought the opening of this was fucking brilliant. Seeing these 3 wastrels getting high in their shitty car. Waiting for these people to go out of the house so they can rob it, and just this, the conversation they're having just cracked me up. It really did. I thought it was an absolutely superb start to this, and yeah, the whole film I just thought was really interesting. Steve, what do you make of The Owners?
Yeah, I enjoyed it actually. It was quite a decent little horror flick. It was nice as well. Silvester McCoy, seeing Andrew Ellis in there as well, who plays Gadget in This Is England.
Oh, right, yeah.
Been for a while.
Yeah.
Absolutely love him in This Is England. I think he's absolutely great in that.
Yeah, he plays Baz in this one, I think. More violent of the 3.
No,
is that Nathan?
No, Terry.
Oh, Terry, the big guy.
Terry. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thought he was absolutely great in it. But yeah, again, it's one of them. Not a twist and turn, but you kind of know that they're going to be, because they're all like stoned louts off their head, and you know it's going to twist, and they're going to become. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're going to fuck it up, and it's going to go wrong. He's a doctor. The wife's slightly
demented.
Yeah, like it's like Alzheimer's in there or something like that. Then you've got the running thing with the like daughter. who's we think's gone missing or something's happened to earlier on in her life. And yeah, nicely played out, well shot. I thought the script was really good as well. Yeah, it's just an enjoyable film.
Rich?
Yeah, we've seen this set up quite a lot of times. The whole, home invaders get more than they bargain for kind of thing, whether that's people under the stairs.
Don't breathe.
Or don't breathe recently, and more recently, there was a film called Villains, which is essentially the same as this in a couple of respects, and but it makes a good double bill. It's different enough. It's also worth seeing.
That's an American film, isn't it, as well?
That's an American film, with Bill Skarsgård is in that one, and Jeffrey Donovan, and Kira Sedgwick actually. But that's by the by. I think even what was it? We Summon the Darkness is also a kind of treads on similar theme, because it's the whole,
or even
the people.
What's the Hunter's Moon as well?
Yeah. So there's all these films where they set up certain characters, they're not, and then other certain things happen. There's twists and whatnot. I thought this was really very handsomely shot. Looked really good. The locations, it takes place pretty much almost entirely in the rooms of the house, including the basement and stuff. The production design was really good on. Jake Curran as Gaz, I think it was, who's like the main sort of instigator of most of the bad stuff that happens in the first act. Is he sort of steals the show with his dominance of because he's supposed to be along for the ride, but he's just being like the Mr. Blonde of the group. It's just he's taking things to the extreme, and he'd be the guy to like just start cutting ears off. He's nasty.
Yeah, he's a right slimy bastard, isn't
he? Yeah. Interestingly, I was just looking at his filmography, and he's been around since 1995 as like a child actor, I think, basically. And he's done things like Wrong Turn 3, and various TV and Dragonheart 3 as well. So he's done 2 TV sequels, cool. But as well as Maze Runner: The Death Cure, he was in recently as well. But yeah, he was really good. But all these characters, him and the others, they're all scumbags. So this is again sort of plays into that bigger genre of bad things happening to bad people. Yeah. So they get more than they bargained for, and yeah, I think it's a very nicely put together film.
There's a funny bit earlier on when Nathan is sort of explaining. He's trying to justify what he's doing, basically, and sort of saying about how his mum never had 2 pennies to rub together with his dad, and he's like, oh, I don't want that for my family and all the rest of it. And sort of Gaz is there going, yeah, man, yeah, you're doing it. You're taking it back for yourself, for your family and shit. I'm like, get a job, you fucks. Seriously. It's like, Jesus Christ. It's quite amusing. But yeah, this is really interesting. The way the sort of power shift keeps moving around. Who's got the upper hand, that sort of thing. It's really, really interesting all the way through. And
then there's hints as well throughout the movie of where it's going to go, and then like the climax is kind of a nice culmination of all that. So I thought I did like the ending as well.
It's interesting, it's one of those things again. It's to do with people's perception of what's happening, and up to a point, you could easily argue that Maisie Williams' character is sort of overreacting to the situation and sort of reading into things which aren't there. Because there's various things going on. There's lots of reassurances as to what's happening, and she's not having any of it. And you're thinking, okay, but are you sure? Are you sure you're reading this correctly? But then it gets to a point when they're in the girl's bedroom, and all of a sudden the shutters come down, and sort of gas grenades come through the door, and it's like, okay, I think we all know where we stand now. Yeah. So no, this is really good. I really did enjoy this. Very, very interesting characters, and as we've said, Silvester McCoy, he became Doctor Who at probably one of the worst times when the money wasn't really there, and the scripts weren't really there, unfortunately.
He was the last one for his Doctor Who basically killed it off.
Yeah,
it wasn't his fault, but it basically died for about 5 years.
Yeah,
I like Colin Baker.
Yeah, he did have one really good Dalek story actually. Silvester McCoy, set during the 50s. I think it was Remembrance of the Daleks. I think. Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Sylvester McCoy has never separated himself from Doctor Who, even since then. I mean, all the fan stuff that kept going while it was off air, unofficial stuff and everything. He was playing Doctor Who, but unofficially by a different name and stuff like that. He's always been linked to it. And even there was like a BBC drama as well, where there was like a very long, epic Doctor Who story that they did, and they brought him back for that and stuff. But he's got a wide body of work outside of Doctor Who, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure he does, but nobody's seen it.
No,
but a friend of mine's an editor, and he's worked on a lot of productions like that. And he did one with Silvester McCoy, and he said he's got a habit of as soon as Silvester McCoy thinks the scene's ended, he will suddenly whip round to camera and go, "How was that?" Even if the director has actually called cut, he's in his own head. He's like, "Cut." He's like, how's that? Is that right? It's like, we haven't finished the scene there. Go again. But no, consummate artist.
What I liked about this was it played with your expectations of Silvester McCoy while conforming to.
Yeah, exactly.
It was exactly what you'd expect from Silvester McCoy. So it's very underplayed, I would say.
Yeah, and Maisie Williams was very good in this as well as the sort of put of on Mary. Not exactly much smarter than her boyfriend, but probably marginally so. But
yeah, I think the only thing that with Maisie Williams is their accent in it is quite posh. And the rest of them are quite chavvy, and that kind of threw me a little
not
bit.
Quite chavvy enough, yeah. But,
just slightly, but she's good in it.
Yeah, it's definitely. So scores on the doors, Rich.
Well, before we score it, there's just one other thing I wanted to bring up, right, which was something you flagged up, which was the change in the aspect ratio.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, how were you feeling about when that happened, and what were you?
I wasn't sure what. I raised the question because I wasn't sure what had happened. I don't know if it was the way, I was thinking maybe because we got given a screener by Signature Entertainment. I wasn't sure if there was a cock up there, and I wasn't sure if there was a cock up with my laptop. Which is why
so clearly it wasn't a stylistic choice that worked for you.
Well, no, because I was thinking there's a glitch here somewhere. So
there's a glitch.
I wasn't sure what actually happened. It took me a few moments to realise, and I sort of flicked back sort of 5 minutes and sort of, well, no, the aspect ratio was full widescreen back then, and then it does jump back to widescreen at the end. But for and I suppose it's from. I think it's from when one of the characters gets killed and the weird stuff starts happening, that the aspect ratio changed. I couldn't pinpoint when it actually happened. I'm just going back by memory. But it suddenly became really noticeable that all of a sudden you're just watching a box in the middle of the screen. What's your theory?
I think what they were trying to do is make it feel much more claustrophobic.
Okay. Yeah.
I think they would, just trying to make it more claustrophobic is what I think they were.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it necessarily needed to happen.
Like
No.
It was a very bizarre.
Actually, I was wondering if it was something to do with there's a TV scene a couple of times where it doesn't work as a telly, but they only watch videos on it. I was wondering if it was something to tie in with that, but that didn't really make any sense.
Do you know what crossed my mind was because the character, one of the characters gets injected with something, and they're losing sensation, their limbs and things. And I was wondering if it was something to do with that, so like everything's sort of closing in on them as a result. So, possibly. I don't know. I really don't. Let's ask them.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. It doesn't tie in. I don't know. It's just like a weird thing that they've done.
Yeah, it's not like Tenet, for example, which constantly changes aspect ratio because some of it was shot in IMAX and some of it wasn't, which drives me mad as well. But Transformers: The Last Night was the worst one because I thought it was a problem with the way it was showing on Sky or something. But in terms of this with the box, I can relate a similar situation because there was Kursk. I can't remember what the full title, but the film Kursk came out last year.
Yeah,
and it was on.
I've forgotten the name of the actor now. Guy from
Colin Firth.
Colin Firth, that was it.
Yeah. So I tried watching it on Netflix, and it's this little box, the same as what we were watching in The Owners. It's a little box with the black bars at the top and the bottom of the screen. I was just like, why the hell? And it was driving me mad. I was checking my settings and everything, and then I realised later that that's the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then it opens to widescreen. So it was a stylistic choice, but I was thinking it was a technical problem, and so that was that's the only sort of relatable thing I can say. But I don't think they needed to do it really. I think it's a fun idea that they did, but clearly, as we can tell from our conversation, is we didn't quite get what they were going for with that.
So this is directed by French director Julius Berg. I believe he's French. He is, in fact. What's interesting about his filmography is it just made me realise there's a French TV series of The Crimson Rivers.
Yeah, there is. It's on. You can watch it on all four under the Walter Presents. So I really want to see that because I loved The Crimson Rivers, the first one.
I like both actually, but
I thought the second one was a bit silly,
not as good. In fact, the second one.
The funny thing about the
second one actually reminds me of Hot Fuzz.
Well, Hot Fuzz has basically the same scene in it, the sort of free running chase.
The free running.
I'm not sure if they copied it or what. Yeah. It's so similar, so it's easily confused.
Absolutely.
Except Christopher Lee was in one and Timothy Dalton was in the other. But,
absolutely. Anyway,
the Crimson Rivers is funny. I'm digressing, but the Crimson Rivers is funny because in the making of documentary, Vincent Cassel is going into detail of how the plot just doesn't make any sense. He's just ripping it apart, saying it's nonsense. It's total nonsense. And it's right. He's right. It's true when you think about it. But anyway, a very entertaining film. The Owners, on the other hand, which I'm going to score a 7 out of 10, is very decent.
Yeah. Steve, you?
Yeah, I'll go with 7.
And I'm going to join you on a 7 as well. So, 3 7s for The Owners. Check it out. Our next review is Broil. As Chance Sinclair begins to undergo some changes in her attitude, she starts to learn of the legacy of her extended family, especially that of her grandfather, August Sinclair, who rules the family with an iron fist. On the eve of what they refer to as the harvest, Chance's parents make a daring move to try and free themselves and Chance from August's grasp, bringing on board a very talented chef called Sydney. Just straight off the bat, Rich, how relieved were you when you found out that Chance wasn't going to be the only main character?
I wouldn't say that I was feeling any particular sense of relief. I didn't. I wasn't bothered by.
I didn't mind the. I didn't mind it too much at the beginning, but. She very quickly became a whiny brat, and she was going to stay a whiny brat for the rest of the film. And it was very annoying.
That's fair. That was her job in the movie, wasn't it?
It was basically her job in the movie, yeah. But the stuff going on around her was much better. The stuff with her parents and her grandfather, that was really cool.
How did you? I was a bit more unease with all the sort of terminology and ideas and things they were throwing out. Like, it's time.
It drops us in the deep end, and it doesn't sort of try. There's no exposition at all, or hardly. There are some very confusing scenes. The opening scene, you've got no idea what that's relating to. And there's other scenes in the film. There's a scene where she suddenly, you see her gasp and run back into a room and lock the door, and there's a woman sort of saying something to her on the other side, saying like, please, we want to help you, or something. And you've got no idea what the fuck that scene has to do with anything else that's going on in the film, and it's never referred to again. It's full of little moments like that, unfortunately. But
what did you think? Did you see the when she gets called? She has a confrontation at school, and she's basically called to the office.
Yeah,
and she's sitting on the chair or whatever, waiting, and the camera pans across to the I don't know if it's the teacher or the administrator who's making the phone call, and then and then the camera pans back, and if you have. You almost don't notice it, but there's a cross on the wall, and it in between the time of the camera moving away and coming back, the cross is inverted.
I hadn't noticed that actually, but I had noticed some other inverted crosses throughout the film.
Yeah, I think they would sort of throw it. It was kind of like a motif that they were adding in. I think I noticed it on like a window or something. There was a cross marking that. But basically, what this reminded me of initially was Vampires of New Orleans, because it was another family doing a well. It was a family in this town, doing a harvest. There's some sort of curse thing going on.
You're right.
They're vampires, but they're not really vampires.
Yeah. But for me, this almost gets it completely right. I really enjoyed this a lot. A lot of that is down to Jonathan Lipnicki as Sidney.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it was him until the end credits. I mean, I think I saw I think I heard that he was in it, but before I'd watched it, I forgot about it.
This was the little kid from Jerry Maguire, all grown up, basically. If you want to feel old, this will help. And he plays Sidney as I'm guessing, Rich. He's playing him as sort of a highly functioning autistic.
That's how I took it as well, because he's socially dysfunctional. He's very particular about things.
Yeah,
he knows.
There's that brilliant outburst in the kitchen when Chance picks up something off the kitchen table and starts to eat it, and he just explodes, going, "That's not food. That's part of the meal," and all this sort of stuff. I thought it was great. It sort of really showed his colours, as it were.
He's very coldly emotional. He's also he's kind of an assassin as well as a chef.
He's an expert in potions and herbs and things like that, and poisons, which he uses with his boss to sort of get
Lachlan Monroe.
Yeah, Lachlan Monroe, who's been in loads and loads of stuff. A very recognisable face, Lachlan, straight away. So some of the acting not brilliant. I mean, the guy playing August, his accent was all over the place.
I couldn't tell whether he was supposed to be Irish. Yeah, Irish Scottish.
Exactly. But you wanted someone like Tony Curran in that role, I think. If you want to sort of go that sort of ancient sort of Scottish brogue kind of thing, I'd have thought Tony Curran would be better. But this guy was great. He's one step ahead of everyone. Of course, he knows these guys are going to try and poison him at this gathering. It goes into some quite nasty places, which I quite liked, I must admit. These guys are sort of immoral vampires. Of course, they're going to do really horrible, immoral stuff. And I just really enjoyed it for the most part. There's a few sort of narrative bumps, but overall, this was kind of like, as he said, Vampires of New Orleans, or even sort of like, the families in Twilight, the backstory of Twilight, that sort of thing. I thought this gets it more or less right. Thought it was very good.
There's kind of a going into a time without time where somebody young is grown up, and time doesn't matter to. So there's a whole metaphysical dimension that they include. I mean, there's a lot going on. I didn't click with it hugely, to be honest. I thought it was quite interesting in places, but out of all the film, well, I'm not going to say out of all the films, but this was one of the ones I enjoyed least. Interestingly, I've just been looking up the filmography. So the director and writer Edward Drake, he has written Anti-Life, which we watched recently, and Cosmic Sin, two Bruce Willis sci-fi action movies, which is really weird because this is completely different to those movies. So I haven't seen Cosmic Sin, but I expect it's more of the
I've seen the trailer for it.
I watched the trailer this week. Yeah,
it's interesting. It sort of goes to the Edge of Tomorrow route with the sort of exoskeleton kind of things, which is kind of weird.
Have you noticed? It's a bit of an off-topic thing, but the cover design is basically the Edge of Tomorrow poster. It's so similar. But anyway, so this is so he's done a few other things like short films and stuff, but this seems to be his first major one as a writer director. And I think he's Australian, or he's studied in Australia anyway. But he co-wrote it with someone called Piper Mars. And this is that person's first film as well. But I'd say I don't know. It's got a lot. There's a lot of stuff in this film, and I'm not sure it all works. It brings in so many. They've clearly done a lot of research on various things, and they're throwing in lots of ideas. You get it's very ambitious. I'll give it that.
There's some really good sort of dialogue scenes as well. There's a whole bit where she's Chance's arguing with her mother. Because she's learned a few things. She's going, look, are we vampires or what? She's going, I'll tell you after dinner. All this sort of stuff. What's going on? I'll tell you after dinner. Then her mum turns around and goes, tell me you love me. And she goes, I'll tell you after dinner, which I thought was quite good. And there's another bit where somebody says to her, or says to Sydney, I think, sort of some quote from Machiavelli, but attributes it to August. My grandfather always said this, so keep your enemies closer and keep your friends closer, or something stupid like that. And he goes, no, that was Machiavelli. He goes, yeah, but my dad said it first. Which I thought was quite good because he's been around forever.
Yeah.
I thought some of the, some really good dialogue in there, which is really cool. You're right. There are some issues, as I sort of mentioned as well. Not everything makes sense, but I liked a lot of it. It might have even worked better as a series, if it was sort of one season series or something. Might have worked, given the chance for the characters to sort of be more fleshed out, because we hardly get to know the other Sinclairs, often the Psycho one. But other than that, so I enjoy this. I love the the how he figures out how to sort it out at the end as well. I thought his solution was quite inspired, quite cold-hearted, but inspired at the same time. So,
how did you feel about the chapters?
How I feel about that sort of thing. It was playful. I thought at least they're having a bit of fun with it. It wasn't too po-faced. The first one was called The Girl Who Lived, which is obviously a piss take out of Harry Potter straight away. So that was, it was playful. So I think there's one that just says, I think so. The last line of dialogue in one chapter was something like, "I'll figure something out," and the chapter just comes up saying, "He didn't." Which I thought,
well, that wasn't even a chapter. That was just like a little comical intertitle, which was quite weird because they don't do that in the rest of the movie at all. No. It's that was a bit random, but I suppose that's the idea with the movie, playing with your expectations.
Exactly. I really did enjoy this. I wasn't sure at first how it was going to go because I hadn't seen a trailer for it or anything. I didn't bother reading the synopsis. I just went into it, so I wasn't really sure how it was going to play out. But I was quite happy with it overall. So taken on board, there are a few sort of issues with its narrative and that. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10.
I'm gonna before I give my score, I'm just going to say that it has a distinctive score. The music in it's quite interesting.
Yes, it is. Yes, I totally agree.
So I'm going to go. Well, not as a result of that, but because I didn't connect with it hugely, I'm going to go 6 out of 10.
Okay, 1617 for Broil.
Before I go, I just want to mention. So Edward Drake, who directed it, he directed Cosmic Sin as well, and his film after that is another Bruce Willis movie that he's written as well, called American Siege. So clearly gets on well with Bruce Willis.
It goes through in cycles of 3, I think. So yeah, cool. All right, 6 and a 7 for Broil. Check it out. Our next review is What Lies Below. When 16-year-old Libby returns home from summer camp, she is shocked to learn that her mother has a new boyfriend, an incredibly hot one at that. To make things even more awkward, though, Libby starts to notice that the boyfriend, John, has some strange habits. Again, didn't know anything about this film going into it. So I was, for the most part, pleasantly surprised. It almost goes kind of icky in a couple of places because he's just like not sure what sort of thing's going to happen between this 16-year-old girl and this 30-year-old guy. But it goes in a very interesting direction, I think. Rich, over to you first.
Yeah, I didn't really know anything about it. I mean, the fact that I saw Mina Suvari's in it, so I was like, okay, we've seen one or two films with her in, and I've been not too impressed with what we've seen. But this was more she plays the mother in the film, and the film mainly belongs to an actress called Emma Howarth Emma Hovarth, sorry, as Liberty Wells, the daughter. Is kind of, the film is kind of a coming of age or awakening kind of story, but very sort of different, very twisted. It's the film about. It's one of those films about the relation. You got the relationship between two people and a third person coming into it and disrupting it, which we've seen various versions of. It's quite often it's a husband and a wife, and then there's it's the dead calm thing, isn't it, of Billy Zane
or something like that.
Yeah, or whatever it is. In this case, it's the mum's got a new boyfriend, and everything's very it's almost, for the most part, it's almost just like a straight drama. Like you think of some of like the British films like Fish Tank or whatever that have come out that are about I think Fish Tank is the one I'm thinking of anyway. About the relationships between younger guys, older men, and whatever, younger girls. Sorry, I think it's all played really well. The film looks it's low budget, but it's restricted, so they only stay in around the cabin area, which they live in this national park in New York State, and the whole thing is shot really nicely. The characters interplays are convincing. The performances are really good. The guy who's playing who was it John Trey Tucker?
Troy Iwata.
Sorry,
his name Troy Iwata. Yeah. Nice, Tommy.
Yeah.
Trey Tucker.
Trey Tucker. Yeah. So he's kind of your I don't know, teen movie kind of character. Sort of very handsome, and he's quite cut and that. But they introduce him like Ursula Andress in Doctor No, which I thought was quite funny.
Yeah. Coming out of the walls as well.
He's very charming, but you're just a bit unsure about him, and then as more things happen, the thing you start to feel a bit more unsettled without giving too much of the game away. But by the time you get to the third act, things have gone a bit crazy, and I'm not sure if I'm entirely on board with the final act. But For the most part, yeah, I thought it was brilliant.
Steve, what do you make of this?
I kind of agree with Rich. The first 2 acts I thought were great. The third act, where it does go off the wall, really, really annoyed me. Because it's one of them where nothing's settled. It doesn't tell you what the crack was, why it happens. And that last shot as well, the last scene, really, really just annoyed me because there was nothing in there.
Yep.
Did nothing whatsoever.
It does kind of,
you know
it does
I mean?
leave you with more questions than answers.
Yeah, but it doesn't. To me, it doesn't really need to do that. I don't know. It just seems to go completely overboard. Like I said, the first 2 acts, first hour, I thought was great. The acting's he's phenomenal. The John guy playing John, because he's got you. Even as a straight man, I'd have his kids. You know what I mean? He's great to look at, but he's got that sliminess just underneath the surface as well.
He's
just
trying too hard,
a little
isn't
bit
he?
of creepiness.
Yeah, you feel he's trying too hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and it builds gradually and gradually and gradually. And, you know, we've seen this type of thing before, but it is done really well. But it just leaves you with so many questions at the end. And that ruined it for me.
Yeah, I understand. Really did. Yeah, I understand how you feel about that final shot, because it shows you something without showing you anything. And as you say, they're just like, well, what exactly are you showing me? But the scene before that, there's a scene earlier on where she has to go to the pharmacist, Libby, to get stuff for her mum, and she spots this guy outside, and she's sure it's John. She thinks, oh my God, that's John with another woman. But then she realizes that it kind of it looks like him, but it's not him. You know, and you think, oh, that was a weird scene. And then you get a payoff at the end, which I quite liked. I did like that scene at the end. The penultimate scene, I should say.
Yeah, but again, even to me, that wasn't really paid off as well, because it doesn't explain it.
I know, but you can infer stuff from it.
You can, but to me, it was a bit like Willy's Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want, like the Nicolas Cage character, I wanted a bit more backstory, so I knew what the crack was with him. With this one, you get little snippets, because it just doesn't explain it to me, and it left too open-ended, too many unanswered questions, which didn't do it right for me.
Yeah, it obviously we don't want to spoil the ending, but yeah, it just didn't add up what it was showing him. But a lot of the other stuff works really well. As I said, there's that really creepy scene in that dinghy where it's like, what?
Oh God, yeah.
What's that about? Very weird.
I think that's the strength of the movie. It's in that drama, that sort of, that inappropriate relationship kind of, what's what.
Well, that dinghy scene is probably the biggest what the fuck moment I've seen for a long time.
Very strange. Yeah.
Really, I was like,
especially with the eels, the lampreys, whatever they were, sort of in there as well, just made it all very icky. But yeah, this is solid stuff all the way through for the most part until we get that end bit. People's mileage will vary there, but I don't think there'll be too many complaints with the the mystery that's going on before that. How things come together. Thought it was very enjoyable. But yeah, a 7 out of 10 for me. How about you, Steve?
I'm gonna go 6.
Okay, and Rich?
I'm gonna go 7 out of 10. But I'm also gonna say, was there more to do with the cans buried in the garden than I caught? Because it just it seemed like a big thing that they introduced, but I never really understood what it was.
It was
it
was the grandparents, wasn't it?
They were putting
just to
they were opening messages to their grandparents, or gifts or something to the grandparents. And then obviously her mum's like got her own sort of resentment in that area as well. So
yeah, because I thought that was a bit. Because is that something people do? I mean, that's just sort of seemed quite odd to me. That's what because I was starting out the story thinking, is there something supernatural with these ladies? You know, are they, you know, I don't know, like a Broil thing? Is there like a vampires kind of thing, and they're doing some sort of you know, maybe there was something bigger going on with this act, but it seemed like no, it was just a character thing. But it wasn't really something I could I connected with, because it seemed like a time capsule thing that they would do every year as a ritual.
Yeah, so it's a weird sort of thing, but it's family ritual. Let's leave it like that, I think.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, so 2 7s and a 6 for What Lies Below. Check it out. Our next review is Archenemy. A young man called Hamster is trying to pave a career as a gonzo-style journalist. He strikes gold when he befriends Max Fist, a drunken vagrant who claims to come from another dimension where he was a superhero. As Max divulges his stories to Hamster, he starts to become an underground media sensation. In the meantime, Hamster's sister, Indigo, is having problems getting out of the drugs business when she is sent to retrieve money and things go south. Okay, so at first, I really didn't know what to make of this, Rich. It opens up with this sort of animated sequence to sort of show this battle between Max Fist and this lady called Cleo, and how he ended up going through this sort of dimension, you know, to end up on Earth, basically, or our version of Earth, where he basically becomes a bum. He basically, you know, tells stories for whiskey. And yeah, it's such a weird film. The film actually reminds me of a little bit is He Never Dies. I don't know if you've seen that one, the Henry Rollins.
Oh yeah,
one.
The Henry Rollins one.
Yeah, it's got a similar.
I was thinking of watching that recently.
Yeah, I would, especially, and it's a female counterpart as well. So I wasn't sure where this is going. If it was just going to be like a straight drama, you know, with this guy who's sort of damaged and thinks he was a superhero, you know, befriended by this guy called Hamster, who sort of like, you know, wants to become a sort of on the street journalist kind of thing. And I just didn't know where it was going. And for the most part, it is like that until you get this brilliant scene with Indigo, his sister, his much cooler sister, it has to be said, who's sent by her boss to collect money from this guy, and things get weird, brilliantly so. Basically, I thought that was an absolutely superb scene in that room, and things start getting more and more out of control, and sort of Max becomes more and more sort of prominent. Yeah, I really really enjoyed this. How about you?
I'm with you on the first bit, but not so much on the second bit. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't really engage with it, to be honest. So it wasn't. So I felt like it's really. And I think I kind of maybe expected a bit more action, maybe to connect me with it, but also the themes and that felt. You know, we've seen so much of this. This is, you know, Hancock with Will Smith seemed to basically be. But it seemed to basically be the same. Especially idea, but there was also I think because that was a very long time ago, that film, but I think I remember enough of the relationship between a couple of the characters that I kind of get what you're saying. Superhero movie variations and stuff, we're just drowning in them now. There's just so many of them, and I don't think this one brought enough that was unique to the table. I mean, there's a couple of interesting scenes which basically say, okay, what if Superman was the Punisher, and he was on coke, you know, kind of, or methamphetamine.
So come on, get it right, Rich.
Yeah. But no, the whole there was he's this homeless superhero, or you know, I'm not a superhero. You know, they say he's not a superhero. But there was an MTV cartoon based on a comic book in the 90s called The Max with 2 X's. which I don't know if you ever saw, but that was really weird and played with conventions. And he was homeless, but it was all there's stuff going on in his mind, and all the fantastic. And he made friends with someone, a young person, and is it all in his head, or is there actually a real threat? So this is doing a lot of the same things.
It is.
I just thought it didn't really. Even when there's some action that fits in, it doesn't. I don't know. I just felt disconnected from it. I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really like this. I'm not so keen on the animated bits. I don't think they really sort of needed it that much. But there's a brilliant bit because you got this guy Hamster who's sort of been filming him and stuff, doing these sort of crazy shit, and it's crazy shit, but at the same time it's drunken hobo crazy shit. Nothing you wouldn't see out of a Jackass video, but Hamster sort of believes that he really is this sort of superhero guy, and he's going to help save them and all the rest of it. And there comes a point where he's all geared up, and then he starts doing methamphetamine, and you see the look on Hamster's face, and it's like, oh fuck, this is all in his head, isn't it? He's just a fucking drug addict. He's just a fucking drug addict who sort of pulled us into this absolute nightmare. Who's got this sort of drug-addled sort of like vision of himself as a superhero from another dimension.
Which I think would have been better if they'd have stuck with that.
No, that would have been too crazy. I like the fact they sort of flicked it the other way, because as soon as we're introduced to Cleo, who's now the boss of the boss of the boss, and she mentions a few things, and it's like either she's sharing his psychosis or it's all true, and she's too straight to be sharing his psychosis. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. So yeah, no, I really like this. Wasn't too keen on it. The first 10-15 minutes it took me a while to sort of get into, but the scene in that sort of scuzzy hotel room with the guy in this underwear,
that was a good scene. That was a really good scene.
It was perfect timing. I just thought that the timing of it was really, really good. So yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed that. So I'm giving this a 7 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Plus, a final footnote is that it's directed by Adam Egypt Mortimer, who previously did Daniel Isn't Real.
That's right. That is another good one.
Which
also another one called Some Kind of Hate.
Some Kind of Hate.
Which is a really good film about bullying and that sort of thing, sort of self-abuse. About this kid who gets sent to a one of these sort of like teenage correctional facilities, it's sort of summer camp kind of thing, because he beat up some kid at school who was bullying him, and it turns out there's a ghost there of some girl who committed suicide. Yeah, that's quite good.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm on board with this. So I thought the soundtrack as well. Some of it is a bit too sort of thrash metal-y, but it does have some really good sort of synth music in there as well.
Yeah, synthy soundtrack in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what you said a 5, did you?
I did.
A 5.
A very on the fence, not quite committed. Don't really think. Wow. Yeah, wasn't sure what to make of it. 5.
All right. Okay. So a 5 and a 7 for Archenemy. Check it out. Our short shot this week is Squadron. This is a Star Trek fan film from the Czech Republic. During the Dominion War, newly promoted Admiral Nansen is given command of a squadron of 4 Norway-class starships with the USS Minneapolis as his flagship. While he and the ship's captain, Victor DeSantis, find themselves clashing over how to command the Jem'Hadar launch an audacious attack. As I mentioned, this is from the Czech Republic. The whole thing is in Czech, which is quite surprising. But at the same time, not that surprising, I guess, because, I suppose it is quite easy to forget that Star Trek is a worldwide phenomenon with fans all over the world. So why not get films, from places like the Czech Republic, Japan, even, Spain, France, who knows? And I think these guys do a fantastic job. of setting up this idea, setting it during the Dominion War, which was what sort of the latter half of Deep Space Nine was all about. And I think this is superb. I really, really bought into this story. Steve, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was more polished than what was the other one we watched?
Oh yeah, the original
Second Contact or something.
Yeah, that's yeah. Is that right? Yeah.
First
the
Frontier
film that we watched.
First Frontier.
First Frontier. That was one. A lot more polished than that, but equally, I thought the script was just as good as well. Performances were really good, especially like the baddie, the lead baddie, Jana, I think she was called, whatever. And I like the interplay between the admiral and the captain on the ship. Falling out and over Blaney's orders and that kind of thing. I thought that added quite a decent dramatic twist to it, to be fair. But yeah, no, I thought it was really good, really enjoyable.
Yeah, it is very solid. And, I like one of the things they do, because they come up with their own version of a starship, the Norway class is brand new. So they got carte blanche how to sort of dress the sets, basically. It's like, oh, that's not what the Constellation Star Trek looks like. It's like, well, yeah, I just told you. But at the same time, the special effects are done really well. They got some great modeling for the ships. All the sort of transporter effects and everything are really good. I just thought it was really solidly produced.
Yeah.
Rich.
Yeah, I agree. It looks better. The visual effects outside, the external, spaceship battles and all that sort of stuff, does look better than the on-set stuff, but that's fair enough. But those external shots. I mean, we've seen this in quite a few fan films. Even non-fan films like Iron Sky and things like that. The level of quality to the computer-generated, spaceship effects and things that people can achieve in the last 15 years or whatever is remarkable. Monsters and whatever took that to a different level. And so all that stuff looks amazing, but the stuff the stuff on set, even though the sets themselves didn't look amazing compared to the bigger budget counterparts, obviously. What I loved was the attention that was made with the cinematography. Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of thought to where the camera was placed, and I think even in I don't think I'm reading too much into it when I say in the first scene where the guy goes and he gets made admiral. It starts out with pleasantries, and then the camera crosses the line, and and then you're on another side, and it's purely professional. The pleasantries are out of the way, so it's like they've shifted the camera to the opposite side to highlight the fact that things have changed now. We're in a different situation. This is purely business now, and the camera stays on that side for the duration, which I really like. There's some other scenes where the camera is placed lower and higher to make characters highlight their importance in a particular moment or something. So I thought that was all really well done, and as you say, I think the performance is really good. I also enjoyed the performance of the villain, who I don't know what alien race she was. I think she was the same as one of the characters on Deep Space Nine.
The Dominion are they're shapeshifters, I think, aren't they? They work with the Jem'Hadar, the guys, the grey alien guys. Well, it might be the other way around.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's been so long since I watched Deep Space Nine.
Might be. I'll be honest. I used to watch Deep Space Nine a very long time ago. I'm not a mass. I do like Star Trek, but I'm not a massive fan, so therefore I don't recognise all the bits and bobs. I did catch the reference to the guy who was the head of Deep Space Nine. Or at least he was.
Cisco.
Cisco, yeah. There was a reference to Cisco.
Cisco, yeah.
And there was a couple of references I picked up on, but most of the time I was just watching it as a novice on the outsider, and I thought it was, it it sits alongside some of the best Trek fan films that I've seen, including that. What did I just say it was called? First Frontier, and also there was one called Renegades a few years ago.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, I remember that one as well. Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm hoping they'll do another one and maybe sort of expand the crew a bit, because obviously, we don't know the engine room or the medical room or whatever, that sort of thing. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure I saw something that said part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, it was originally released in 2 parts, and what they've done is they then put the two together to make this one.
Yeah,
but they've only just been all 3 versions have only they came out very quickly. Like I think they were all released in 2021. So and they've also been supported by, I don't know if you know of the Axanar team. They're the ones who sort of got in trouble with Paramount because they were basically getting too big. They were getting too big with their budgets and getting professional actors and stuff on board. But they've promoted this film Squadron on their channel as well, which is helping bring it to a bigger audience. So that's really good. That it's being embraced by the wider community, because I've never seen a Star Trek fan film or a fan film for any franchise I can think that was not in the English language of the main franchise is known for. So that was quite interesting. But the one detriment of that was when I was watching it, the subtitles were very small and
tiny.
I had to take my eyes to the bottom of the screen, which then made me miss a bit. And I'm experienced with reading the subtitles.
Do you know what? That's because you were actually watching it without subtitles, because that's the subtitles they put on themselves.
Oh, that's burned on.
If you put on the closed caption subtitles, which I found out afterwards as well, they are actually bigger. So we'll just throw that out there in case you're struggling. Press the closed caption button.
Good tip, Mike.
I had the same issue, and it wasn't until I went back to sort of check a few names and stuff. Like, there's a CC button there. Check that. But this is solid. A couple of little things. The Admiral's solution to when they first get attacked, and he sort of like hits impulse full power to get closer to the other ship, and that means that the missiles, the torpedoes weren't activated. Straight out of Half a Red October, apparently. And there was some snide comments on YouTube, sort of saying, "Oh, it looks like the universal translator was broken." I was like, "Piss off! Come on, let other countries do. If other countries can do stuff as good as this, then I'm all for it. I don't mind reading the subtitles. As I said, I'd love to see a Japanese Star Trek. I'd love to see something on this quality done by some Japanese guys. I think that would be superb. I really do. A Japanese crewed starship, God knows, another Yamato or something. But this is absolutely solid. We'll put the link in the footnotes as usual. Any more comments, guys?
No, that covers it, I think.
Cool. Yeah, check it out if you're a fan. Even if you're not a fan, if you're just a casual fan, I think you'll get a lot out of this. Our DTV throwback this week is Steel, also known as Riders in some areas. In this one, a gang of extreme sportsmen raise the stakes in their criminal activities, taking on some daring daylight robberies. So this stars Stephen Dorff as Slim, leading this sort of ragtag group of extreme sports enthusiasts. We first see them robbing a bank and then getting away on rollerblades in quite spectacular style. There's a lot of good stunt work going on here. And then he and his gang sort of run into a few problems, not least with the sort of police captain played by Bruce Payne, who's called Magruder, I think, in this one, and Natasha Henstridge, who's a new detective called Karen, who's sort of taking a bit of a shine to him, and a bit of an extreme sports type person herself, as we find out. Steve, how did you find this one?
your typical 90s fun crime movie, really. It reminded me like a cross between Triple X and, you know, bit of Point Break thrown in there, and then you've got what's it called, Stephen Urkoff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Who I didn't recognise at all.
Which is just It's the wig. It's the wig.
The wig, the Elvis wig.
Just coming in from another film altogether and just completely over the top.
Yeah.
But it moves at a fair old pace. There's no stopping. Even when
there's no fat
character dies. No. It's forgotten in 2 seconds and they just crack on and get on with it, really. But I like the play where, you know, the actual bad guy is the cop who's supposedly investigating them. And how he gets his comeuppance, I thought was really good. But again, the stunt work's really good. I mean, that opening, what do they call them?
The rollerblades.
Rollerblade.
Yeah.
The opening rollerblading scene. I thought that scene was absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's one bit where he bounced off a bus and a truck and a car, all in the same move, and thought it was really well done. Really well done. The characters are quite likeable as well.
Yeah. A bit of true romance in there, but not as extreme as that. These guys are sort of stuck with all this sort of money, need to sort of exchange it. It's the bearer bonds, isn't it? So they get the money, but then they find out there's like 20 million bearer bonds in the thing as well, and they've got to sort of try and exchange those, which is where sort of Stephen Burkoff's character comes in. The bit I thought was quite amusing as well is when Stephen Burkoff comes up and they're like, "Well, how did you find us?" And he's like, "I just asked around. I'm surprised the cops aren't on you." And you go, "Yeah, why aren't the cops on us?" Which I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah.
Rich, what did you make of Steel? Had you seen it before? This particular showing?
I did. I saw it when it came out, and I was struck by the stunt work in it, but not much else at the time. Not a lot's changed. It's interesting to see it all these years later. This was on Prime. It was in widescreen, which was nice, but it looked very rough. I don't know if it was the print had aged or something, but it was definitely not a good. I mean, maybe it looked like that originally, but the quality of the way it looked was quite surprisingly rough. But that aside, there is some good stunt work in there. It's from director Gerard Perez. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but he's a French director, most well known for like Taxi, the original one, not the Jimmy Fallon version. But he did. He's done. I mean, he was an older director. He's been around for quite a long time, but that was probably the one he was most famous for. And then he made this one in Canada, so not too difficult. French made it in Quebec, so they shot it in English, but it's not. It was probably quite easy to make an American style film in Quebec. It's probably quite telling that it was the only one he did. That he pretty much didn't bother with trying to do it again. It's got certain. I mean, obviously, it's a hodgepodge. It's, as you say, Point Break and different things added in. But there's the whole contrivance of him running into Natasha Henstridge, or Slim Stephen Dorff running into Natasha Henstridge, and then them sort of developing a relationship. And wouldn't you know it? It's like, what are the chances? She's on the team trying to find the bad guys and whatever. But we've that's movie contrivances. Bruce Payne with his wandering American accent is quite amusing, but he was better in Passenger 57 than he is here. But always a good bad guy. There's some nice little bits thrown in, as you say. Stephen Burkoff playing a teddy boy assassin preacher, or who seems to have come in from a different movie. But it's really the main thing the main reason to watch it is the stunts, which includes a nice tanker on its side wheels.
Oh yeah, that was very good. Yeah.
Which is copied straight out of License to Kill, and it might have even been done by Remy Julien as well. I'm not sure. Here on IMDb, it does say it does have him listed as uncredited as being involved in it, and some of the vehicular stuff is very much in his style. We lost him obviously recently, but he was he was very well known for the James Bond film. I think he do the Italian job as well with the minis. I think he did.
Not sure.
But yeah, so there's some nice cars crashing. There's a bit where a car that is CGI enhanced, but there's a bit where this car crashes in through a bus.
Yes.
Which is fun, but it's one of those bugbears I've got, which is a bit like with you media res and all that sort of thing. Is the not really having the consequences thought through of the collateral damage.
Oh yeah, the 2 dozen people he just killed. Yeah,
it's like all these people just been, because there was a similar scene in I think it was National Treasure 2 where a car goes through a bus. I'm sure that's the same thing. It was like, well, you're just not.
Bits of
you're just thinking about the spectacle
pouring out the other side of the bus. But I think
characters,
it's just a breezy fun, really. This one,
yeah, it's only 80. It's like less than 80 minutes minus the credits. So it's
a funny bit at the end as well. Where there's the gotcha moment at the end, which I thought was quite funny because it's like, aha, this it shows that Stephen Dorff's character was playing the long game, from the start. Even further than most people could have seen, which I thought was a nice touch as well. He right from the off, he had a plan, and you only sort of let into part of it before the end, which I thought was a nice touch. I like that. Yeah, I like that moment.
Yeah, again, it's kind of tied in with the unofficial theme of this show, which is films with bad guys who get in over their heads with people who are even worse than they are. So it's a heist. It's like one of those heist movies where he's like the Danny Ocean, and they're bad guys doing bad things, but actually the people they're doing them to are worse than they are. It's like, that's kind of how they.
Hoping, it's a case of like, are they going to get away with it or not, sort of thing.
But I was thinking, really, unlike say Danny Ocean or George Clooney version, I'm thinking of specifically, Stephen Dorff's character, he is legitimately scaring the hell out of innocent people and actually throws a bloke out of a car and could almost have killed him, and a moving vehicle, I should say. And he's like kind of charming this bank teller or whatever at the beginning, but basically assaults her. Because he's like gives her a kiss and stuff, which she, that's sanctioned. That's certainly like we're supposed to be on side with this guy, so I'm a bit uncomfortable with that. But then,
the bit I was uncomfortable.
Obviously,
it was the whole conversation, that speech that Bruce Payne does when Natasha Henstridge turns up. He might as well have just whipped his dick out, basically. For all
that was to try and highlight just what a nasty, sexist pig he was, which worked, And
then also you have the casual racism thrown in there as well for that one scene as well.
Oh yeah,
Jerry, was it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh god, yeah. So like, I don't mind working with a Negro or something, and so oh god,
yeah,
very problematic.
That bit didn't sit too well, but.
Yeah, but it's just he got his comeuppance.
Oh God, yeah, damn right.
So I thought this was a lot of fun. I hadn't seen it before. It was riffing on a lot of films, as we said, but it was breezy. It was fun. It was well done. Lots of good action. So I thought I enjoyed it. It's sitting on Amazon Prime, so. If you are a subscriber to Amazon, we think you should go check it out if you haven't seen it. And that is the end of this week's show. So thank you for listening. Thank you for Steve and Rich for joining me and talking about this myriad of films tonight.
It was a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was a good bunch. It was a really good bunch tonight. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter, where you'll find the DTV chart and mentions of other films which are being released. And also, don't forget to check out the DTV Digest Short Shots podcast, where we look exclusively at short films. Other than that, thank you for listening, and tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.